Alright guys, hope you're doing well. Just want to make a quick video today to talk about perfect retests and why I hate them. So, really short video today. Just want to cover a couple topics, but the big one I want to cover today is front running. So, I know a lot of people are pretty bearish right now, looking for something like this. I know many people have talked about that they tend to agree that if we ever get below this, I would say the market's probably pretty cooked and we're screwed. Honestly, if you really are bullish on Bitcoin for the long term, I really do think any monthly close below here, and it's lights out. At that point, it's lights out. I cannot see a bullish scenario where we actually get a high frame close over here. But honestly, this is not really what I'm expecting, and we can kind of go over why. But I want to keep this short because this works on all time frames, and you're going to want to apply it both to your spot bags, but also just, everyday trading. So if you look kind of at the way this is played out, right, I'm going to draw a couple levels here. What you'll notice is that previous highs tend to get front run, right? So we mark these out as our previous highs, and if you guys look, and we're just going to kind of draw these one by one. The price actually never trades all the way back down into them, right? We get one here, right? We get one here, right? We get one over here. But if you actually notice, we're never completely filling these gaps. And this is not like a super complicated thing to analyze or whatever, right? I guess this kind of does. But for the most part, all of these previous highs are just going to keep getting front run, right? You have another one right over here. And what I think you want to look for, at least at this point, is the exact same kind of thing going forward. So what I see is, generally speaking, and we're going to look at Sol for this as well, is that if you do actually get closes inside of this range again, it's probably lights out, right? And we can sort of imagine what this would look like, right? We get a bounce off this high, but I really do think that if we actually touch these numbers and we give people this bid, it's going to be lights out. And what will probably happen is we're going to just bleed all the way back to the range lows over here. So if you guys look, we have a nice kind of pretty clean range, right? We can get rid of all these other levels for now, right? And we kind of just have these key levels up here. And what I would imagine would happen is we accept below here, and we will probably get a move straight back to the range lows down there, right? And this is not really an absurd prediction. I mean, we saw the exact same thing on Solana, not even a few weeks ago, right? Where this is our range high, this is our range mid. We can kind of put this over here to symbolize that. But realistically, right, this is very clean. We break down from range high, right? And again, you can draw this as a newer range as well, whatever. It doesn't really matter, but pretty clear that this by itself is a whole new range, right? We flipped this old high to support, and we got moves up into there. Now, what happened, right? We got a close below the mid-range, right? Went up for this retest over here, and then we just sunk all the way back to the range low. And this is what I think the rest of the market is going to do if we do get that close lower, right? And again, it's not like ETH did anything different this week, right? If we go to a higher frame chart again, right? We got a close below our range low, right? We tried to buy it back, and then we just got capped by the old range highs again. Like, it's actually quite clean, right? All that happened is we lost this range up here, and we broke down into this range down here. Now, this to me is a pretty terrible look. Not really much to say about that. But again, if you lose this level, you know that you're probably going to this range low, right around over here. So the levels on this are not all that complicated. Now, if you are a ETH bull, this is actually not the worst look, if I'm being honest, because you finally started to put in some decent market structure, right? If you look at all these really don't have any market structure, if I'm being honest. It's just being sold off and sold off and sold off. What I think you'd want to see now, right, at least on a local level, is a higher low here and a higher low here, right? And what you probably don't want to see, if you are this same ETH bull, is a perfect retest of this level down here, right? Once you get that, you will probably, once you break below here, you will probably just accept into here. So my analysis on most of these coins really is kind of the same. Something like SWI as well, where again, you haven't filled this gap completely, right? Again, Very, very clear to see this. And my logic would be the same, that if you get a close inside of these ranges, you are going to go back to the bottom of all of them. It's really not, a crazy thesis, I don't think. But this is kind of where I think you would end up with something like this, is going straight back down. And this is just range trading, right? It really is just range trading. So even if you draw this out like this, right, this was our range, and now we are starting to just break down. But all of these have kind of been the same since day one. So if you go look at a coin like Ape, right, not a very good coin, but a good example of range trading, right? When we break out below the range and we lose the range highs, right, you guys can see this all really does happen the exact same every single time. And that is why I'm showing so many examples of this, is I really want you guys to get proficient in this skill. Is that, oh, we lost this old range high over here, and then we got an immediate move down back to the range low, right? And again, these have happened the exact same way every time. Range high gets flipped, then we go back to the range low when we lose it. So if we get this same kind of thing on ETH where we just reject off that old range, I think we will go lower again. And that's kind of the same logic as BTC, where if we do get to 77 or 75 and then we can't reclaim, it is probably over. Now what I do want to talk about quickly though, before I wrap this video up, is this perfect short that I have seen all over Twitter. And honestly everywhere. The perfect short is, from a TA perspective, this is correct, okay? I'm not going to pretend that this is not a valid trade. I'm just going to pull up this guy over here. But yeah, from a TA perspective, this is pretty valid, right? We broke down from this support over here, right? These kind of levels are pretty mega support. So yeah, I mean, if you wanted to, take the short from here and then target there, maybe you'd get away with it. But honestly, I doubt it. If you look at this, like at least historically, every single range retest has run aggressively. At least, like, every deviation has been bought back pretty aggressively. And this has kind of been the same across the board, right? Every single time we get a dip that is a deviation below the range, there is immediate buyback, and we just end up going higher. So, I'm not saying that we don't necessarily nuke. What I'm saying is that if they give you this perfect retest, first of all, from any trading perspective, this is the very obvious trade to look at. You've got a bunch of bars that are all next to each other, and there's clearly support there. Like, it doesn't take a genius to figure this out. And because of that, I'd be very, very skeptical to take a trade like this. I think if you are bearish, this is the only trade that you can take. This is the most obvious short that I've ever seen. I can use moving averages. I guess I can really use any indicator I want, and it's going to point at the same level. It really doesn't matter. And again, because of that, and just because of the fact that it's such an obvious short to try to take, I would be very, very hesitant to take it if the price does have the strength to get there. Usually, right, when something is so popular, it just gets blown through or absolutely front run. And I think it's the same thing here, right? If I use the EMAs, it's going to give me 913. If I use supply or demand, I'm going to get whatever, 313. If I use Bollinger Bands, if I use... There's a million different random indicators you can pull up. I don't know, I can look up some cloud thingy. I've never used this. And sure enough, it's going to point at this number here too, right? This is not a great thing to see. This seems like a very obvious trade to me. And because of that, what I would imagine happens is that if we are going to be bearish, where we're probably going to squeeze into is above this high, right? This is kind of where I think you'd want to see that squeeze. You'd get this move above 100K again, and then you'd probably see lower. And if you're bearish, right, and you can't get this, I think you would probably not even get above 88, and you would just break down. Now, I don't know if we can flip this to support. I'm not that bearish, honestly. But I actually do think this kind of move is pretty likely. I think people are really accustomed to shorting this all the way through. There hasn't actually been a higher high squeeze since 108K. And yeah, I just don't see this obvious short working. And I think it's the same thing across the board. Where, again, if Solana is able to trade back into $180, I'm not shorting it. Because if it's really bearish, in my opinion, it shouldn't really have the strength to get all the way back to here. Right? Granted, I could be wrong. It could get there and it could reject. That's not insane. But at least to me, I just don't see it happening. Now, I think people honestly hate on Sol way too much. I don't think that this is bearish at all. We went from $7 to 100 and whatever. People talk about this chart as if it's going to zero, when most of their altcoins are actually down 80% or at the same prices that they were in the summer, right? This is clearly not the same price as it was in the summer, right? Compared to something like ApeCoin or something, right? This is not the same chart. This is definitely not the same chart, right? Huge difference, okay? So when people talk about this rotation that's going to magically disappear from Sol and go to all these other coins, if it was going to happen, why are they going to zero? It's not a crazy question to ask because this is only 2x above the lows, right? And Solana is about, I don't know, 15 times the lows, okay? That matters in context. It really does. Same thing with ETH, right? People hate on this coin so much, but at the same time, you are still up 3 times from the lows, which is more than the vast majority of the alt market. So if you are looking at this from an actual investor perspective on a long-term basis, these coins are still performing great. It's kind of ridiculous. There's no way to say that this is a bear market when you started at $7. It just doesn't make sense to me. So from a long-term perspective, to me, this is the most interesting crypto. I think it has the most potential, simply because of the fact that it's the DeFi layer, and honestly, the price action speaks for itself. If it was going to go back to $40, $50, $60 or whatever, I think it kind of would have happened already with the rest of the market. And even if it does, and we go back to 50, $60, I can't even imagine how low that this thing is going to be. So there's definitely money in trying to find these rotations, but honestly, I'm not going to spend too much time chasing, right? I think I've told you guys what I'm into a lot. Jupiter, Solana, all these coins, I like these guys. Solana, ETH, Jupiter, simple DeFi plays, because I do think those will probably be the main 2 DeFi layers. Anyways, guys, I'm going to wrap this video up. Thank you all for watching, and I will catch you guys in the next one.